Absolutely. Are we recording?
We are recording.
Paul Taylor.
Oh, hello.
Welcome to the podcast. I actually never bring a laptop to these things, and I just go. But you've got so many accolades that I was like, I actually have to write these down. You are a psychophysiologist.
Correct.
Neuroscientist, exercise scientist, nutritionist, former British Navy aircrew officer. You host the Hardiness podcast, and you're the author of the book Death by Comfort.
And a new book called The Hardiness Effect.
The Hardiness Effect. Is that out now?
That is now, it's on pre-sale. It is out in 2 weeks.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Exciting. So you know a thing or two about the hardiness and resilience space.
Yes.
So my first question to you is, what is the biggest antidote to hardiness that is existing right now in our society?
Parents.
Parents,
Helicopter parenting, mollycoddling their kids, trying to keep them away from stress. And what that does is it grows mentally, emotionally weak children into adults.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that now. I think a couple of things I would say. So one is parents, the helicopter parents, right? Your kids can and need to do hard stuff, right? The second is in schools, there's lots of well-intentioned stuff in schools and universities about mental health awareness. And look, that's really good for people who normally wouldn't talk about their mental health to have that awareness. But the research now coming out is that the more you talk about mental health, the more people, particularly who are suggestible, like kids, actually go, maybe I've got anxiety, right? Maybe
I need my
got
5
this.
minutes out of class.
Yeah. And I think coupled with that, we are over medicalizing normal experience.
Everything has a pathology.
What used to be called worry is now anxiety.
Yes.
And kids are talking about my anxiety, right? It's like, fucking hell. It's not you. It's like you're anxious sometimes, you're nervous sometimes. That's natural.
It's part of evolution. You're supposed to have a bit of anxiousness from time to time.
Absolutely. And it's there to tell you that you care about something, right? That something's important and you should be focusing. So I think there's a lot of well-intentioned stuff about awareness that's actually, for some people, is actually making things worse and making them feel they have things when they don't actually have them.
Pathologizing something that's the normal human experience.
Totally. And then the add-in, and especially there's a lot of this in universities, trigger warnings. And there's trigger warning on this, trigger warning on that, and you don't have to be here, and then people opt out. And it's that, if you give somebody a trigger warning, all of a sudden their amygdala is up. Oh, fuck. Should I be anxious about something? Should I be worried about this, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's well-intentioned, but it's just making it worse. The number one intervention for anxiety is exposure therapy, not avoidance.
Yeah.
And we're actually training in hypersensitization around mental health issues and avoidance as well. And then when somebody then has a label, for some people, that label then becomes an excuse to not have to do any work about it.
For sure. I am this, therefore I...
And it reinforces a narrative.
I'm the bad back guy.
Bad back. Worst thing you can do?
Yeah.
Not move, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But you have people that associate as I'm the bad back person. It just stays with them forever.
That's right.
And they don't do work on it and it just gets worse. And we had a sports psychologist in 2 or 3 episodes ago and we were talking about participation awards. And we asked him the question thinking that he was going to sit on the fence and he was like, there is no evidence to show that they do anything beneficial. If anything,
it's worse.
It's for the parents to not have a difficult conversation.
There's a long history of this going right back to the 1980s in America, whenever some of the research showed that people with higher self-esteem were better citizens, they committed less crime, right? And then they went, okay, so what we need to do is boost people's self-esteem, starting with kids. And that's when this whole boosterism thing, you're awesome, you could be anything you want to be, you're brilliant and all of that. And then they realize, there's a freaking bell curve for a reason. Not everybody can be an astronaut or an astrophysicist, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the wrong message. And it was boosting people's self-esteem falsely. And then when they interact with the real world, comes crashing down to you.
Can't handle it. Yeah.
And it's a similar thing of well-intentioned interventions that actually have, and are useful for some people, again, we got to say that.
Yes.
But have unintended negative consequences for quite a lot of people, and especially in young people. And I'm a big fan that schools should not be talking about mental illness. They should not be saying, this is what anxiety looks like, this is what depression looks like, this. They should be talking about skills, life skills, hardiness skills. That's what I'm really passionate about.
That's incredible because, I mean, we all walk around with a set of narratives. I am this, I am that. And especially, I guess, younger people are still figuring that out. So they're trying out these narratives like, I am a person that X, whatever. And so it seems like, big labels like that and big pathologizing labels where they're not appropriate. It's like that is now the lens with which all of my little narratives are going to be seen through.
Absolutely. And it's important to understand the developmental phases, the socio-developmental phases. So kids particularly, it's all about their peers and it's all about acceptance, right? So if you have, and particularly it's even worse with teenage girls, there's a group of girls and a couple of them have anxiety. Others will go, oh, well, I'll have anxiety too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so it's that I fit in and there's social acceptance, right? So we have to be really, really careful about this. And I think we've just gone too far.
Yeah. So practically then, how can we find the sweet spot whereby we're not dismissing something in children that might be actually really something that needs to be addressed medically or with an intervention?
Look, those things will come up. There does need to be some awareness about when. I think it's understanding when normal emotional responses start to become pathological, right? That's the key. Not that, if somebody dies, you're in grief. That is a normal emotional response. You don't need to be on a friggin' antidepressant for that, right? It's understanding when that emotional response becomes pathological, starts to affect all areas of your life, stopping you doing the things that you want to do. That's when it really becomes a problem. It's that delicate balance of having that awareness versus suggestibility, right? And the other thing I think that goes into this, especially with ADHD, what do you think is the number one predictor of whether a kid gets diagnosed with ADHD? What do you reckon it is?
School?
No, I'm going to say genetics. If there's a family member with diagnosed ADHD.
Date of birth.
Really?
What?
Date of birth.
What do you mean?
If they're born young in the year, if they're young for the year, they are way more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD than if they're born old.
Is that because they're behind the class in development?
It's just because they are behind on the development curve. They're on their own one, but they're behind others. And what is the first, who's the first identifier of it? Teachers. Go,
this kid's not listening
little Johnny's
as well.
disruptive. He can't concentrate.
Yeah.
I think he should get tested.
Yeah.
And then he goes off and gets tested, right? And a lot, I find there's been a loosening, and this is not my words. Emeritus Professor Francis, who was one of the co-authors of the DSM-4, that's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of all the different issues, mental health issues. And he, for the DSM-5, he's become very critical of that and say we are loosening everything too much and we're over medicalizing.
Yeah.
And particularly then with kids, if kids aren't sleeping well and they've got phones in their room
my God,
and they've got a crop diet and they don't move, they will fail an ADHD exam.
Yeah.
I had Professor Martin Ames on the podcast. So he is a research neuroscientist, and they have shown that 5 nights of sleep restriction you present with the same symptoms as ADHD.
Wow.
It's funny you mention that. I'm
mental.
at a school 2 days a week for strength and conditioning, and recently they've put me into like a mentorship role for young boys. We've got two types of groups. We've got low confidence and just disappeared. They're not in the back of the class. And we've got acting up to some capacity.
Yeah.
All of them have very strong similarities in the fact that they all go to bed past like 1 or 2 a.m.
It's crazy.
And I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, someone will play PlayStation, somebody messaging friends or whatever it is. I'm like, what do your parents say? Like, as long as I get myself to school, they don't care. I'm like, how are you guys going? Like, no wonder why you can't pay attention. You're staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning.
I know.
Well, isn't it like if you get less than X amount of sleep, you're basically as impaired as like X amount of drinks?
Yeah,
like
So if you have 5 hours of sleep, you will perform about the same on tests of cognitive function and driving skills as somebody who has 7 hours sleep but has enough alcohol to make them legally drunk.
God, it's mental.
Right. And when they do those studies, the people, and they ask them how they think they went, the sleep deprived people say, oh, I think I went pretty well.
Yeah, great.
The drunk people go, oh, I think I probably screwed up.
Yeah.
They're more
They
aware.
have more awareness.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy.
That's nuts.
So sleep, that sleep deprivation, even a little bit, massively impairs cognitive function, concentration ability, all of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, and you know, I've got a 15-year-old boy, and I was coaching them soccer this year, so I know a lot about their habits and their behaviors. And a lot of these kids, they're on games. Their parents don't know. They've got stuff in the room. And I always say to parents, like
Get it out of the room.
Get your freaking, get the phones, devices out of the room, or you're being a shit parent. Right? I'm sorry, but you freaking are.
There's like widely talked about examples of like that gaming culture, especially when it's live online gaming. Like, I won't tell you how I know this example, but like, kids, teenagers, they'll pee in a bottle in their room rather than like get up and go to the toilet. Like it is, you are, it is sucking
some
you in.
Some kids in Korea have died because they just got gaming constantly. They don't eat, they don't drink, they just, and they...
Is the gaming itself doing anything damaging in the brain, or is it more that it's restricting things that are healthy?
Look, I think it's a combination of those. There are some benefits from some games, but... These things are highly addictive. Like when I was a kid, it was Space Invaders.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
But you're not going to play Space Invaders all day long.
Yeah.
Like, and I've seen my little guy Oscar's, like some of the games that he plays is like, wow, that's incredible. Yeah, so it's hijacking the dopaminergic systems, right?
Yeah.
And the games are brilliantly designed to hijack dopamine.
It's like social media. It's like just enough.
It is.
Enough.
And it's the little surprise as well releases dopamine and it just keeps you wanting more and more and more.
They nail the timing, don't
they,
of the delivery of that.
Absolutely.
I'd love to stay on the ADHD topic a little bit longer. And full disclosure, I've been diagnosed as an adult fairly recently with ADHD. So I'm just really, really curious because we also had a psychotherapist on the podcast a while ago, Liam, and he was like, don't get me started on ADHD. Like this is, so it seems contentious. And I can totally see why. Number one, we are like in the most distracted time in society that we've ever been in. And like we just talked about, the accessibility to these quick dopamine things is just at your fingertips. So no wonder it's kind of like that craving sort of always exists. And then number two, and I'll freely admit this, the medication for ADHD is freaking awesome.
Absolutely, and
it's a stimulant. Makes you feel good.
So I don't know if you've seen the thing on the program on Netflix around this. And
What's
it was American kids. I can't remember. It'll come to me. But it was about American university students, all buying Ritalin, right? Off their friends and stuff like
that. That culture is massive.
And taking it to dial in on exams, and they're going, fucking hell, this stuff is amazing.
Yeah, right? Addicted to it.
Just a normal person taking that would be like, wow, I'm so dialed in. I get so much shit 100%. Done. And they're all taking it thinking this is amazing for their exams. And then you see at the end of it, they're going, like a year later, I completely fucked my brain and I had to get 100%. Off that stuff, right?
Yeah, and so you wonder whether all of the people that self-report, you go through this whole big process to get diagnosed, like you say, it's loose, sure, because it's self-reported and reported through parental stuff, but a lot of it touches on the normal human experience growing up, the normal human experience. Like we are probably being asked to concentrate way more than we're designed for. Like you get me in a budget meeting at work for 8 hours, and I'm like, oh my God, my ADHD is going crazy. But it's like, but also no one wants to sit down for 8 hours and look at numbers.
Absolutely.
Like that's insane.
Yes, it is insane. So there's a number of different things that play into it.
Yeah.
And if we broaden the lens to talk about all mental health conditions, I've looked at some of those questionnaires. A lot of them are leading questions. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem, particularly with young people.
Yes.
Is
like, maybe
leading
this.
questions.
I'll give
Yes.
that a yes.
Yeah, exactly. And when you ask, how many times a week do you do blah, blah, blah? Oh, right. And you start thinking about it, right?
Yeah. And then you self-report back in your follow-up and you're like, yeah, this medication's life-changing. But like we're saying,
it'll be amazing
Yeah,
for
it is.
everybody.
it's sick.
Yeah. And the issue as well as all of that stuff is that for people, particularly, there's a subset of parents who want a diagnosis for their children.
Yes.
Right? This is a big problem in the States.
because that makes it not their fault,
And,
right?
well, not only that, because they get more time on exams and they get a lot of extra little benefits. So there's actually very pushy parents actually wanting to get a diagnosis of anxiety or ADHD or whatever, so that their kid actually the criteria is loosened for them and they get more time. So there's a whole heap of different factors that go in.
Yeah.
And actually, I had a guy on my podcast. What's it? His name escapes me in a minute, but it'll come to me in a second. But he has co-written, Professor Mark Horowitz, he's co-written the Maudsley de-prescribing guidelines. So this is the first ever guidelines for GPs and psychiatrists to de-prescribe their patients off,
Wean people
particularly
off
antidepressants.
shit. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But their research shows that only about 15% of people who are on an antidepressant in this country have a valid reason for being on one. 15%, right?
Yeah.
And then I interviewed other researchers on my podcast that basically showed that they surveyed thousands of people who were on antidepressants, asking them about the side effects, right? So this is important for listeners to understand. When they establish the side effects that are written on the leaflet, or the doctor says, here's the potential side effects, they are tested in clinical trials. They have to be tested. And then they ask people, when they're on the trial, did you experience these side effects? So guess what? If you don't ask about it, it doesn't exist. So they only ask about a narrow range of things, right? And these researchers have screened thousands of people who've been on, real people, and over 50% of them reported having 10 or more common side effects, right?
Wow, that's a lot.
And I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but somewhere between 50 and 60% had sexual difficulties, felt like they weren't themselves, suicidal ideation, particularly when they go to come off the drugs, right? Low energy, all of these things, and they weren't assessed. So they don't exist as side effects according to doctors and according to the prescription. So this is the thing. People are going in, they're wanting help because they're struggling. They're genuinely struggling. And they go in and the doctor just gives them a script. And all of a sudden they're on these drugs, which can help in the short term for some people. But fuck, you try to get off them.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is I know of people that have been like, I feel great. I get off it. And then they are like a complete shell of themselves.
Well, you remember me, and I'll use myself as an example again. Postpartum was an absolute, and I'll talk about this because I want to talk about like absolute pressure cooker environmental places and how that can kind of bring out our everything, all of our shit. And so if you haven't done that sort of pre-work in the resilience space, like how likely are you to then be diagnosed? But anyway, that's a question for a minute. Coming off an SSRI, well, first of all, I went on an SSRI and I was like, okay, the symptoms are alleviated somewhat, but I didn't cry for 3 years, not one tear.
Everything goes grey, right?
Not one tear.
Everything goes grey. So loss of emotionality, there's like more than 50% of people who are on them say, I've just lost my emotions. So it takes away all the lows, but also takes away the highs and the good stuff, and life becomes grey for a lot of people.
100%.
That's your experience,
100%.
Right?
Could not shed a tear. And I almost felt like a craving from my body to like, to release something, like I need to freaking cry. So I'm like, I watched The Octopus Teacher on Netflix, which is supposed to be really sad. I'd cried about that a couple of years ago and I'm like, come on, the thing's died. Like, let's go. Couldn't, could not get there. And it just so happened that I'm was very interested in this space of being, okay, like we have to, like I want to be more resilient. I want to like feel the full range of human emotion. But that was a very, very like brave, I would say, and deliberate step to do that. Whereas a lot of people would just go like, not the time, can't do it.
Yeah.
And then coming off them, the brain zaps, the full body zaps, the vertigo, the insane emotions, that like it is chaos.
And a lot of people try to get off because they experience those things and they get all of that.
And they go, nah.
It's not worth it.
Shit, this is my stuff coming back.
Yes.
Or they get suicidal ideation. Like more than half of people who try to get off an SSRI have suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
Right? That's mental.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right? And these drugs were only ever meant to be a short term.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But there are now people who've been on them. The average length is 2 years. And it changes your brain chemistry. It changes so many different things. And
do things happen permanently in the brain?
Sorry?
Does change happen permanently in the brain?
I don't know. I'm not somebody who's done the research around that, but there are significant changes that come when you are changing. You can't go in and mess with neurotransmitters and not have it. Show me one drug that doesn't have a side effect. This is the thing. But my criticism of the whole mental health space is there's not one mental health condition that has a biological signature, right?
What does that mean?
So what that means, so diabetes, you've got high blood sugar. We can see that.
Yeah.
High blood pressure, right? So you've got hypertension, right? Every physical condition, there is a biological signature. There's something that we can test in the body that goes, that is out of limits, right? No mental health things have those, and the vast majority is questionnaire-based, it's self-report, and a lot of them are leading questions in some way, shape, or form, right? And you have somebody going in there who's emotionally fragile, ask leading questions, most of them are going to come out with a certain condition. So Mark Horowitz's research shows that with the progressive loosening of the DSM, with DSM-5, 85% of us meet the criteria for some mental health condition.
Wow.
Like, are we really that fucked?
Yeah.
Or is the mental health industry minting patients just like central banks mint money? And again, I'm not criticizing anybody who's on medication at all.
Yeah.
It seems almost like everyone should be, the way that the system is.
well, that's right.
As you said, 85% of people, if you're
that's
looking
right.
for help, it's just easy to go down this path, potentially, for some people.
It is.
And when all your friends are on it, it's like high school again.
And this is exacerbated, particularly in this country, and it's the same in the UK, the US. Trying to get in to see a psychologist is really, really difficult. There can be months and months of waiting lists. So, but
And also the expense
take this
to do
in
it.
the short term,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's
And
working.
then all of a sudden, boom, you're hooked.
Then I don't have to go and talk about what's underlying or whatever it is. I can just take this tablet, it makes everything better.
And so, presumably, and this is very macro now, but the antidote to that is building resilience, which is your wheelhouse. Are some people born more resilient than others?
The short answer to that question is yes. There are some genes that are involved in resilience. Dennis Charney's done a lot of this work, right? And there's even gene variants, or particular gene variant, where if you have a particular version of that gene and I have a different version of that gene, if we go through early life trauma, you become super resilient, I collapse.
Wow.
But that's only one gene. This is work at Dennis Charney, who's done a lot of work with PTSD in combat veterans, right? I actually like to talk about hardiness because resilience isn't well defined, right? You look at, and when I was doing my literature review on it, there's lots of debate about, is it a trait? Is it a state? Right? So is it something you have?
Yeah.
Is it something that you're at the minute? Is it a process?
Yeah.
Is it an outcome?
Yeah.
Right? And
how
lots
do you
of
know
people-
when you've got it?
Yeah, exactly. And the big thing about resilience is it's more of an outcome. It's about bouncing back from adversity, but it doesn't tell you how to get there. It doesn't tell you how to do it, whereas hardiness actually does.
So would you view hardiness as a skill then?
Hardiness is definitely, it's a skill / process. It's a set of cognitive or psychological orientations. And it's been established for around 30 years. And Salvatore Matti and Suzanne Gobasa, they were the ones who came up with hardiness. They did a 12-year study in the Bell Telephone Company in the States, where they were going through this massive restructure over 12 years, and the business was really struggling. And I think it was about 3/4 of the employees just fell on a hoop. lots of them got burnt out. And then about a quarter or a third actually didn't just not burn out, they actually improved and excelled, right? And they realized that they had three things that they shared in common. First was a control orientation. I truly believe that I can control or influence my environment and my destiny. It's what we call in psychology an internal locus of control. People with an external locus of control believe that their life is influenced by others. Things happen to this shit always happens to me. Right?
Victim mindset stuff.
So internal locus of control, and in difficulties, they tend to focus on what they can control and don't invest their energy in the stuff they can't control. And lots of people get in psychological trouble when they invest their energy in the stuff they can't control. In their heads, they're wanting to change the past. They're wanting to predict the future, have the universe bend to their will, right? They're wanting other people to change their behavior. They're wanting all these different outcomes that are completely outside of their control. So that's the first thing, a control orientation. Second is a challenge orientation. High, hardy people view both change and adversity as opportunities for them to grow and develop. And they lean in to challenges, right? And we can unpack the psychology and the physiology behind that if you want to in a little bit. The third is a commitment orientation, which is where you are fully engaged and immersed in life, right? You're into things, right? Whether it's work, relationships, your spare time, you're fully engaged in stuff, right? And I find there's more and more people who are what I call passive consumers of life, where they're spending an increasing amount of their spare time within the confines of four walls with their heads buried in a fucking screen, right? Yeah. They are not fully engaged in life.
Yes.
Now, they'll tell you I'm engaged in this, but that's not really what that means, right? And it's about having a sense that life has meaning and purpose. Because then when you can ascribe meaning and purpose to difficulties, you're much more likely to endure. And then the third bit about it is they're proactive about their health. And you can see how that they play in together, that if I believe that I control or influence my destiny, I'm much more likely to have proactive health strategies, such as exercising when I'm feeling stressed, eating well, because I believe that I can influence the outcome. Whereas if I'm like, oh, this shit just happens to me, I'm like, well, what's the point? What's the point in fucking trying? Right? So you can see how they interact. I have actually added a fourth one, which is connection orientation. Because the human brain is a social organ, and that becomes increasingly important as you are in adversity, right? Having people that you can reach out to and lean to and talk to when you're struggling, or sharing the struggle with.
It's incredible.
So that's psychological hardiness. In my PhD, I actually added physiological hardiness to this. Because I strongly believe that anybody who tells you that you can solve mental health with thinking skills, fucking batshit crazy.
Yeah. And presumably, so that's kind of the framework, but the personality traits that we might see in people that embody this are things like they're curious, they're adventurous, they're enthusiastic.
Yes, that's right.
All of those other little things is how it sort of plays out in everyday life, right?
Yeah, and so when you look at the personality, particularly the big five, Ocean, which is what most serious psychologists say, this is the one, not your MBTI or DISC that you did at work. They're kind of psychobabble. But it's particularly conscientiousness. Pops out as linked to hardiness, as does openness to new experience, to your point, curiosity, openness, that sort of thing, interest in life. So there are definitely leanings from a personality perspective, but everybody can learn to improve their hardiness. And that was part of my PhD. We did a hardiness intervention in people who were in high pressure environments. They improved all three facets of classic facets of hardiness. They also had 26% reduction in their perception of the stress in their environment.
Wow.
They had a 27% increase in gratitude. They had improvements in resilience, and they improved some aspects of cognitive function, particularly inhibition, inhibitory control.
That's amazing. And to my question that I swore we were going to get to, I think what happens in a lot of people is we don't sort of walk around knowing a yes or no on whether we have hardiness or not. Unless you're in your space.
Yes.
And then I think what ends up happening is that it takes a very stressful event or a very high pressure cooker environment for us to actually go, oh shit, like I'm not actually as I'm a little more fragile than I thought I was.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people, and in my example, postpartum, perfect amount, like suddenly you can't sleep, suddenly like your identity's been challenged, suddenly like your whole rhythm of life, like it's a pressure cooker, totally. But for others, it could be divorce, bankruptcy, all those major things. I think that often being people's sort of realization, oh, hey, maybe I need to do a little bit of work in this space or I'm going to drown. Is that too late for a lot of people to then?
It's a great question. It is too late for a lot of people, and this is what I say. And look, I didn't come up with this. This has been around for 2,000 years. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, we must all undergo a hard winter training and not enter into lightly that for which we have not prepared. And he was talking about life. So for the Stoics, they knew that life was hard. The Buddha knew it. The first noble truth of Buddhism, life is suffering, right? That word in it's actually dukkha, which actually means hard to do, right? And so if we accept that life is going to be hard, and this is what I tell my kids, so I'm not a nihilist, right? I'm not like fucking life is evil, it's going to be hard. It's like I tell my kids, life is amazing, but it's also going to be hard at times.
Yeah.
And you need to prepare
equally
yourself.
as both as one another, right?
Yeah.
You've got to prepare.
The highs, you're going to have some extremely low lows.
Absolutely.
The yin and the yang of it all.
In Japanese psychology, which my wife studies, they talk about the two sides of the coin, right? There's always two sides to the coin. But if you know that life's going to be hard, and I say to people, the three things you can be guaranteed: death, taxes, and shit sandwiches from the universe. So why wouldn't you train your body and your mind to be prepared for that? Because the worst time to come up with a resilience plan is when you're in the shit, right? Yeah. That's the key thing. So for me, it's about the preparation. This is where I bring the physiology into it, because the research shows that people who are more physically fit and more physically active handle psychological stress better. And the reason is they're training their nervous system, their autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic and the parasympathetic is the accelerator and brake. And when you're exercising, you're training that system, right? So that's key. Things like, having an expectation that life is going to be hard and actually thinking, when it does get hard, what am I going to do about it? That preparing in advance, the old military thing, failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Yeah.
Why would you fail to prepare for life and some of the challenges? So, and then it's about doing hard things and starting as a kid. And this is why I'm so passionate about saying to parents, you need to encourage your kids to do hard things. They can do hard things if you friggin' let them, right?
Yeah.
And then if they fail, just give them a little bit of time, pick them up, dust them off, help them to learn the lessons, right? We had something in the karate dojo that I work with, and all the kids created these things, and one of them was you win or you learn.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be a lesson for life for everybody.
Yeah.
So there are very clear ways that you can prepare yourself to be hardier / more resilient.
Do you think sport is a big factor in that for children?
Massive.
I tell this story all the time when it feeds into this, but I worked with a guy that worked exclusively with stroke recovery patients through the NDIs. He took them, he was a exercise physiologist, but he took them from bedside, like you've just had a stroke, to like as far as you can, probably go, back walking or playing sport or whatever they were doing previously. And he always said the first question he asks them before anything else is, did you play any sport when you were a kid? And this is like 80-year-old men or whatever, and they're like, oh, what a strange first question. But he said it was such an accurate predictor of their recovery. And the ones that had played sport, he was like, well, straight away, I know that you know how to, progress isn't linear. Yeah. You know how to suffer a little bit. You know how to be in discomfort and not mistake that from pain and sort of know that that's a bit of a threshold. And you just know how to lose. Because that's what it's going to be like. And he said the ones that had played no sport as a kid, he's like, I can almost tell you that they won't get out of bed.
Right. Interesting. I think if you'd have done a Hardiness screen, the ones who played sport would have a much higher challenge orientation, which we'll get into in a second. But you just reminded me of a little story. When my kids were 4 and 8 years old, I was talking to my wife about this, right? Because raising kids, as a dad, I'm thinking, how do I raise resilient kids, hardy kids, when we live in friggin' Mount Eliza, right?
Yeah.
And I say it to my kids so many times, they just roll their eyes now. You're brought up in a bubble within a bubble within a bubble.
Yeah.
Australia's a bubble country.
The comfort is beyond.
It's amazing. When I hear Australians complain, I think to myself, fuck off to a third world country and see what real life is like, right? So that's a bubble. Mount Eliza is a bubble where I live on the Mornington Peninsula, and then they go to these awesome schools with awesome teachers. So and I'd say to what I'm struggling with as a dad is how do you bring up, you want them to have all these opportunities, but how do you bring up resilience? Because I was born up in Belfast in the 1970s as a Catholic living in a Protestant neighbourhood, right? So it's reasonably resilience building.
Yeah, and then you go, do I put them out in the rain? Is that really going to teach them like what they want?
Well, I suggested to my wife that we do a kiddie version of combat survival and resistance to interrogation training that I've been through in the military, and she vetoed that. But we agreed on sport.
Yes.
So we said to our kids, right, here's the gig. You need to do a team sport and a martial art. I think they're important for very different reasons. And we said to them, you get to choose. We'll let you sample a whole heap of different things. They both ended up landing on soccer and karate. But I'd said to my kids, you have to continue to do a team sport and a martial art. Now, you can stop at any time you want. If you want, you can stop, but you got to find somewhere else to live. It's just, I think it's been
that important.
Yes. And when we knew that this was, so Kira, my daughter, was in her exams. I can't remember what year she was, whether she was year 10 or 11 or I think it might have been 10 or 11. But she came home one day and she said she went in the morning and all her friends were going, oh my God, the exams, I'm so anxious. And I'm like, Kira, you're not anxious? And Kira's like, why would I be anxious? Nobody's trying to kick me in the head.
Yeah.
And it's like,
100%.
Bingo, right?
That's it.
Because she had, through competing in karate, particularly, which was full on. I know what real stress is like.
That high level sport of any description, what it prepares people for, because it's like it shows any flaw that you haven't prepared for.
Absolutely.
You're kind of talking about life before, and why would you prepare for life without preparing for hardiness? It'd be like me sending a person onto a competition platform.
Haven't done nothing.
And haven't done anything other than just lift the barbell a few times.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's also like if we want to practice being uncomfortable and that correct level of challenge where we can keep leveling up, we have to actually practice it. So it's like no one's going to be an amazing public speaker if they haven't built up slowly with other things.
And sport tends to do that. It has that whole progressive overload that we talk about in exercise science. It's got, to your point, that you don't always win. And sometimes you get cheated. Sometimes the opposition cheats, the referee cheats or doesn't give something. And it's understanding, hey, life is shit sometimes, and you just you gotta deal with it. But also, I think any type of martial art, I think, is hugely beneficial for kids. Like all of our kids, both kids teachers have always said to us, they're so respectful. And it's because of being on the dojo and that respect.
But also I think because my kids, I have a very similar belief in you. I've got very young, 5, 3 and 2 or whatever it works out to be.
Perfect time for hardiness training.
Yeah. So the girls are already in gymnastics. We're looking for their first team sport now. Darcy, he's just a bit of a bulldozer. But like a friend of mine's a black belt in BJJ. My kids are 100% going there. As soon as they're of the right age, and he's happy to have them, they're going there. My big thing as well is that the danger, because there's karate where you learn to spar, and there's obviously karate when you don't learn to spar.
Yes.
Learning to deal with real life fear or danger.
Fear, yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, if I don't figure out how to defend myself, they're just going to keep hitting me in the head.
Yeah.
And I need to protect my head.
Yes.
It's very important.
Yes.
You run into so many adults that are overconfident in life. And you know what I mean? It's like all the guys, when I used to do BJJ, it was the ones that didn't look like they could fight were the most dangerous.
Yeah.
And you got these guys flying off the hand. So it's this idea of respect, because it's there's also a certain level of fear. I don't know if this person's dangerous. I don't know if this person's respectful. So I like that whole element of team sport, playing in team sport environments, building relationships, camaraderie, failing together, getting over it together. And then the danger of it's like real life problem solving.
And even climbing trees, right?
Yeah.
So climbing trees is awesome for kids because you see them and they're up in the tree and they're like,
Getting up's easy.
I want to get there, but do I go there? And what they're having to do is evaluate risk and reward.
Yeah.
And it's development of the frontal lobes, right? That is the key thing and then if they fall off a tree, hey, that's okay. As long as they don't, split,
course,
put their skull open or whatever. But it's that, now I've learned and I'm learning about risk and reward.
Yeah.
That's hugely important. When we bring up battery kids, like battery hens, where they're completely cocooned, they're not evaluating risk and reward. They're not out there learning about how life works, social skills, how far can I push the boundaries, all of these sorts of things. So look, I think sport and outdoor play is hugely important. And my mate, Professor Grant Schofield, he talks a lot about battery kids. His research showed in New Zealand that in my generation in the 70s, kids used to roam 8 to 10k away from their house, out on their bikes, off they go. Now the average kid roams about 600 meters away from the house.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Yeah, we would ride 3 kilometers down to the high school to play bike diggy.
Yeah.
And then we'd get fish and chips on the way back, and then we get a Slurpee, and by the time you've ridden around, you've done 10 to 15 kilometers on the bike.
We were all day outside until mum's like,
go out, come home when it's dark for dinner.
Yeah.
Climbing trees, bikes, like this, that, the other, and
now kids. Parents want to know where they are. Life 360. Where are they at any given moment? If you're going out, make sure you got your Life 360 turned on. So they know where you are.
Watch it?
No, it's on their phones.
Oh,
right?
okay.
But there's also those watch
things
where they know where they are in any given moment.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want them to get. The world has never been safer.
That's the thing I was going to ask you then is like, it feels to me like what my belief is like the stats are telling us that it's the safest it's ever been. But if you turn the news on,
This is, I think, a big problem in our society is the 24/7 news cycle, and they all have to compete with each other, and negativity sells.
Negativity bias, 100%.
We never, as a kid, heard about wars in far-flung places or somebody getting gang raped in India or stuff. You didn't hear about this, but now all you got to do for the listeners is just open the news and look online. Don't click on them. Just look at the headlines. Count all the headlines. How many are negative? How many are positive?
Yeah.
Because what this does, when you're constantly seeing negativity and then you throw in the pandemic as well.
Oh, yeah. I was going to mention that.
Every day, what's the numbers? What's the numbers? What's the numbers? What's the numbers? Right? What happens when people are chronically stressed? They've shown this through longitudinal studies where they'll put people in a functional MRI scanner, follow them up for years, ask them about the amount of stress in their life, particularly workplace stress, and they see that those who report significant continuous stress, their amygdalas grow. They hypertrophy. Just like your biceps will grow if you're training them lots. It's environmental input. Now, if you think about this is an awesome adaptation if you're living in a dangerous world.
Yeah.
Because it's basically everything's oriented around survival.
Yeah, it's keeping you safe.
Be friggin' careful, right? But when we don't live in a dangerous world, this becomes maladaptive.
But how dare you say that? Everyone's so, you know what I mean? Like, it's so, people are so sensitive. If I've been in a conversation, I'm like, it's not that bad. People are so emotional about it, they won't even hear the stats.
I know. It's crazy. And it really isn't that bad. So here's what I often say to people. Let me just finish the amygdala. So that hypersensitive amygdala, so it's bigger, it's more sensitive. That means you have hypervigilance to stress and threat. Your brain starts to scan the environment subconsciously for bad shit. And then when you find it, you linger on it longer than people with a normal amygdala. So we develop a negativity bias in our brain. And that's when it's like, oh, little Johnny wants to go to a party. Oh, no, I don't want him to go to a party because I've got a negativity bias now that is subconscious that starts to affect other areas of my life. And then I'm just this threat machine. Right? Now, to bring back to the point I was going to talk about with the physiologist and the people who'd done sport, I think if we'd screen them, they would have a higher challenge orientation, right? So challenge and threat, there's super interesting literature on this. So say we're presented with the same potential stressor. You view it as a challenge, I view it as a threat. What happens in our psychology is that you are in approach mode. You lean in. You're motivated to engage. I go into avoidance mode, right? Now, the stress pathways are very, very different. In you, it activates the fight part of the fight or flight part of your sympathetic nervous system. In me,
which is action, right? Action.
Which is action and prepares you to deal with it. and the cardiovascular changes from that stress response, your blood vessels all open, everything dilates, so your body's prepared to action. With me in a threat response, cortisol comes over the top. The HPA axis gets activated. Cortisol runs over the top. It's the major stress hormone. Blood vessels constrict. Blood flow is less.
It's a shutdown.
It's a shutdown.
Yeah.
It's avoidance, procrastination, shutdown. Now, why this is hugely important in our long-term health, in you, adrenaline and noradrenaline that are released, that are driving things, they have a half-life of around a minute. So 4 half-lives, and that chemical's pretty much back to normal. So within 5 minutes of this stressor, you're back to homeostasis. Cortisol has a half-life of way over an hour.
Wow.
That means that 5 hours later, I still have significant amounts of stress hormones shutting down my body, attacking my organs, my brain, impacting my mood, all of those things.
Wow.
So your psychological orientation, which is a choice, right? This is what I always say to people. Viktor Frankl realized in Auschwitz, I don't know if you know him.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, that basically he said that man can take from you everything but one thing. And he called it the last of human freedoms. Your ability to choose your own attitude, to choose your own way. To choose, as the Stoics say, how you respond to a situation.
Is he the author of The Happiest Man in the World?
Man's Search for Meaning.
No, Man's Search for Meaning.
No, there's another guy that was in the concentration camps.
Oh, yes. I know. I don't know his name, but I know of him. Yeah,
incredible.
And I remember I wanted
to
get his book. But this is critical, that challenge and threat. But we get to choose.
Yes.
Whether we view things as a challenge or a threat. That's the key thing. So when I got told that I needed to have my open heart surgery, which we talked about off air, I walked out of there, and the words of Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, hit me like a slap. I pity the man who has not faced adversity, because he has not faced an opponent, and no one, not even him, knows what he is capable of. So I went straight home and I wrote on my bathroom mirror, "Worthy opponent." And I wrote up a training program to train me to face my worthy opponent. And I actually embraced my open heart surgery. I said, this is a worthy opponent. And this is all the shit that I've trained for. And I now get to choose the arena. And I've got 6 months to optimize myself for my worthy opponent. So I always like to say to people, like, who or what is the worthy opponent in your life that you may have been avoiding? But if you change your mind about it, view it as a challenge and lean in, could take you to another level.
Is there ever any... So if somebody is listening to this and they're like, that makes a bunch of sense. And so rationally, they're like, this is how I now need to reframe X challenge that's presented with myself. Is there ever any kind of merit or a time with which we need to process the little pity party before we can get to that point?
100%. Yes, you can have a little mini meltdown.
But how can we move through that? Like, do we set a timer? Do we like...
Some people have, and some researchers, this is a really cool thing, particularly for people who worry, right? Those worry warts. And there was very cool research paper, I think it's called Worries That Don't Come True. And you can just Google it. And they took a bunch of people who had generalized anxiety disorder, so really pretty
severe
serious
shit,
got them to journal everything they were worried about, and then they followed them up after a period of time and got them to go through line by line and work out what came true and what didn't. And 91% of the shit that people worried about never came true, right? So that's one thing that I think is very useful for people who are worriers. But all the researchers, and I love this, they set aside worry time, right? So it's like, right, I'm going to do my worrying from 6 to 6:30 or 6 to quarter past 6. And I'm just going to get it all out, and then it's all done, and I'll write stuff down, and then boom, cognitive closure. I would use the same thing. I'm going to have a meltdown, but I'm allowed a 5-minute meltdown. So some people that crying, having a meltdown, being angry can be really useful because it just lets the emotion out, and then it's like, okay, now I need to get my big boy or big girl pants on and start to reframe it. So I liked what you used, that word reframe or reappraise stress.
Yes.
Professor Jeremy Jameson, I just had him on my podcast last week. He's brilliant. He did a whole heap of research where they brought in a bunch of university students who were about to do an exam in a few months called the GRE. It's their grad school exam where, this can determine the trajectory of your career. So
Yeah,
it's
the
highly
big one.
stressful. And he split them into two. Half of them, he read out this paragraph that basically said, anxiety is your body preparing itself for action and can actually be very beneficial for your performance. So when you feel anxious for an exam, it actually can be a good thing that can help you focus and achieve stuff. The other guys got no intervention. And the ones who he did that on performed much better on a mock exam, and then months later performed much better on the exam as well.
There you go. Yeah.
And that's about just reappraising stress as challenge.
Well, Darren, the performance psychologist, talks a lot about psychological flexibility.
Yes.
So it's not, and we were talking specifically about like game day, comp day, like that pressure cooker. And so he was saying the interventions used to be about symptom minimization, where it's like, let's try and get these destructive thoughts out.
Yes.
But he said now it's very much like allowing yourself to go there, but it's about how quickly can you come back to the present or to the task or to...
I talked to the karate athletes that I used to coach, particularly the younger ones. Tournaments are pretty full on, right? And they'd be saying, hours out, I'm getting anxious. And I'd be saying to them, that's a good thing. That's your body preparing itself for action. But you just need to say to your body, too soon. I want you to think of you're like a caged tiger or a panther, right? Pick an animal and you're pacing up and down and it's getting ready and you just say, not yet, not yet. That's the right thing, but not yet. And you do some breath work to bring your arousal down, listen to some music, whatever. And then when it's time to go on to the tatami, it's like, now let's bring it. Now let's bring it.
Because and it works in so well with what he was saying, because he was saying the more we try and make it not a thing, then we start getting self-conscious about us feeling the thing. And so we're like, oh shit, anxiety. Now what do I do? And I'm very, very like way too self-conscious about what's actually happening. And it can have this loop effect. Whereby, super similar. It's that the anxiety is like, cool, good, this is important to me. Like this is
that's right.
This is a good
what's
clue.
What's the other side of the coin? You care. This is important to you. So,
and
then little strategies you can use if you're feeling anxious. That's your body preparing itself for action. Do 20 burpees. See what happens. Right? Do 20 burpees. Sit down and do a minute of breath work. Boom. Or you're just in over arousal and you just need to bring that down a notch. Is it because we don't want under arousal, right? Particularly when we're getting on to compete. That's when you gotta amp yourself up, right? But reappraising before and then reappraising afterwards, right? And it's particularly, thinking about challenging times in your life. And actually looking back on them, because often if people have been through real adversity, they just, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about that. James Gross and others have shown that comparing people who just suppress negative experiences about the past versus people who reappraise it and go, yes, that was shit. I lost my parents, my wife, husband, loved one. Let's take something extreme. But what was the silver lining that came from that down the track, right? And I picked something really extreme deliberately because often, how many times have you heard somebody said that after someone died, I've been feuding with my brother or my sister and I realized life's too short. So we buried the hatchet. Or I leaned into someone and developed a stronger relationship. So you find the silver lining and you acknowledge the event. You go, yes, that was shit. That was a hard time in my life. But here's the good that came of it, and you focus on the silver lining, right?
I'm really interested in the timing around that, because we hear, like to that point, we hear a lot about like suppressing things, bad. Reflecting too much, also bad. Or like staying in that pain, also bad. So it's like, okay, rationally, where do I find, and again, let's go with an extreme example. And let's say there's some complicated emotions around it. So like anger, blame, etc. So someone has wronged me and it fucked up my life, whatever, as an example. How can I find the balance between acknowledging the anger and the hurt and not stifling anything that's going to come back to bite me in 10 years when I realize I haven't let it go, and finding that silver lining? It's like, how can we sort of know when the timing is to move through into a different phase?
If I had the answer to that, it's fucking hell. I think it's probably different for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's really about, for me, when all the negative stuff is really affecting your life significantly, that's when it's time that you've got to make the shift, right? Everybody's got to grieve, right? And like I said earlier, having those emotional expressions can be very helpful for people. And actually intervening too early in debriefs can actually be a bad thing. Some researchers are now suggesting. So I don't think we've got that nailed in terms of when should you intervene post something really traumatic, right? But with people, with just general shit sandwiches from the universe and I am always thinking about what that person did to me and all of this. It's like at some point you need to go, I'm actually choosing to be harmed here.
Yeah, why am I still here?
Yeah. Is this helpful for me?
And maybe it's getting repetitive. Like none of these thoughts are new. It's the same.
And again, for me, it comes back to the Stoic zones of control. So zone 1, according to the Stoics, is what is up to me. And zone 2 is what is not up to me. And according to Epictetus, what is up to me are my belief systems, my attitudes, my behaviors, and how I choose to react to my circumstances. He says almost everything else is not up to me. The past, the future, COVID-19, other people's behavior. And it's basically then at some point writing all this shit down, right, from this situation. What is up to me on the left-hand side of the page? What is not up to me on the right-hand side of the page? And then doing an energy audit. Where am I spending my time and my energy? And a lot of people spend a shitload of time in the right-hand side of the page.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, even in really difficult circumstances, there is always, always, always one thing on the left-hand side of the page. How you choose to react to your circumstances. That is the key. And it's about choosing to react in a different manner. And basically, the best thing for people is not was this person right or wrong or whatever. Is what you're doing right now helpful or is it not helpful? Right? All that lamenting on the past, is this actually helping you?
Yes.
Or is it not? And if it's not, then it's about focusing on what you can control. And doing actions that are aligned with your values that will help you move towards the person that you want to be. That's the key thing, because we all will get shit sandwiches in life. Some people get completely broken by them, whereas other people, they process it. It takes different bits of time to process different things, but ultimately they end up moving on despite what actually happened. That's the key thing.
Let's talk about vices, alcohol, porn addiction. So let's just talk about all of those little like dopamine things that we build into our lives that essentially soothe us.
Yes.
Should we be actively leaning away from those things to put this into practice, even if we don't see a problem?
Yeah. Look, it's not just if we don't see a problem, right? Because often the last person to see a problem is the addict, right? And look, I'm not going to stand here and say, hey, I haven't taken any advices. I've taken more shit than you could shake a stick at, but it's not been a problem, right? And so it's really when other people around you, if they start to suggest that it's being a problem, or if you really sit and think deeply about it, is this being a problem?
By the time you have that thought, it probably is, right?
It probably is. And likewise, there can be people in this environment who have problems, right? Orthorexia, obsessive exercising, obsessive eating, right? And it's that addictive personality that tends to lean it. And you'll often find that people will swing from one to the other, right? So recognizing in your personality whether or not you are predisposed to those addictions. But then it's also about the frequency of doing things and whether you're engaging in stuff at the expense of other things, whether it's affecting relationships in your life. That's when you know it is a problem, right? Everybody, most people have a little vice, and a little one is okay, but it's not being controlled by it, I think, is the key thing.
Yes.
Right? That's the key. And Jesus, this stuff can be hard to control, right? And I think personally, and this is just my own personal opinion, is that It's when you're using this as a coping strategy.
Yes.
Rather
You're
than
soothing.
just a bit of enjoyment.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
I'm just going to go out and have fun. Right?
Yes.
I think that's when it starts to cross the line.
Yes.
When it starts to become a coping strategy.
Something bad
'cause
happened, then
yeah.
I need this.
Yes.
No good.
Yeah.
That's no good. Whereas, hey, I'm going out with a bunch of friends. We're going to have a lot of fun.
I purposely have this thing where because obviously you naturally tend to be like, oh, I had a bad day. The knee-jerk reaction from whether it's watching people do it when you grow up or for what society is like, oh, I just really want to drink right now. And so my goal is to always never do it when something bad's happened and only do it when something good's happened.
Yeah, that's good. That's
so
a good strategy.
In COVID, I had the three, I drank obviously with social in certain situations, but I can remember 3 specific times I opened a bottle of whiskey. One was, I think when we found out we were pregnant with a second child. One was we hit a business goal even in the middle of COVID. So I was like, I'm going to have celebratory drinks versus, because I know growing up, it was just easy, like it's shit week at work, Friday on the beers or on whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so when I have conversations with people, it's like trying to convince them, like, it's not saying this stuff's bad, but it's how you're going about it.
Yeah.
And if you're leaning upon it when things are going bad, it's not a good thing.
I think I completely and utterly agree with that. Yeah. And you know, I was brought up in a culture, heavy drinking culture in Northern Ireland, and I joined the friggin' military.
Yeah.
Right. Again, heavy drinking culture. And what made things worse, and I was never an alcoholic, but I definitely drank way too much. But the problem with me, I don't get significant hangovers. So there was never a big payback. And my wife will always say it. And then I always had that thing from in the military was, if you have a skinful, you got to get it out first thing in the morning.
Just wake up, vomit?
But no.
Oh, run.
Hard exercise.
Yeah.
And my wife
I have a friend who did the same thing.
always be like, I'd have a big night, I'd get up and I'd be dying and I'd go and do a hardcore workout.
Yeah.
And then get in the shower and turn the shower to cold. And then I'm like, oh, I'm good. Right. Which sometimes is not such a good thing, right?
Yeah.
It was actually COVID when we pulled back. I pulled back significantly on my drinking to the point where I probably now only drink once a week.
Yeah.
Now, I still will have an occasion. Well, I went out for a golf weekend with my mates and give it a big nudge.
Yeah.
My relationship with alcohol is a shitload better now than it was then, for
Sneaky,
sure.
those little vices, isn't it? Like, I remember recently, and I always talk to you about this, when it's coming up to competition week for weightlifting, there's certain things that I'll just do none of. So, for example, I'll have no alcohol. Generally, I'll be doing like a little bit of a
cut,
like a water cut.
Yeah.
So, like the high sodium, the high reward foods, like things like that are out. My Vyvanse is out because you can't test positive for it in competition.
Right.
And that week exposes me as the human that I am more than any other week. I am fucking miserable. I'm angry. I feel empty inside. I feel like life is shit. What's the point? Like, and I walk around like this mopey, and I'm like, my God, just the fact that I can't have these little micro soothing things throughout the day. Like, I am not as goddamn resilient as I think I am in that week, you know?
We used to have, it was a female bodybuilder who worked for me, and when she was on a cut, oh my God. And she'd tell us, she'd be like,
warning,
the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be hell.
Yeah.
To be around. She was.
Yeah.
But you could tell she was trying so hard to hold it in.
Yeah.
So, and this is where, you know, it opens a wider thing. When you're always having to use self-control mechanisms, you know, self-control is like a muscle. We can only use it so much. That's when people go and they've had a hard day at work and they come in and then they fucking go off at their kids or their partner or whatever because they've used up all the resources, right? So that's where it's kind of tricky. But then there's the other people who go, oh, you know, I deserve a little bit of this. And then they just make excuses.
Yeah.
And most people
It's been a hard day.
And to your point, it's when I've had a hard day, I need a drink, right? That's when, you know, maybe you need a different strategy.
That sentence alone, I'm surprised that sentence alone doesn't carry more worry or fear. Because when you say, I've had a hard day, I deserve something that's not going to make me feel better in any way, shape, or form outside of the 2 hours that you're probably having the drinks.
Yeah.
But like your sleep's probably going to be impaired. Your recovery's going to be impaired. Like,
if it's one drink,
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
but if that drink leads to a bottle of wine, or a 6-pack, and to your point,
I think one of
knock-on effect, right?
Yeah. It's especially because I think a good thing that happens to me is I get the worst hangovers ever.
Right.
So for me to like risk having 3 or more drinks, it's like, it's a big decision.
See, I would be so much wealthier if I had that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think like that leads on to like a topic that I think about this with resilience. Like I feel like when we think about resilience and like mental toughness and like however we want to word it, it's very black and white to demonstrate that in times of big hardship. So I'm faced with, it's the David and Goliath. I'm faced with this big thing, like you get to be the hero, like look at me. Whereas I think there's another side of where we practice resilience, and it's in being still and it's in the sort of just existing without, you know, for particular types of personalities, probably for sure, but just being almost still and just going through normal life without having like this next thing and this next thing. And that's what I really find in comp week. It's just sort of like the difficulty of like just boring old life.
For me, one of my key values, I love this word, is equanimity, right? Which is just the calmness in the storm, right? Whether it's a little one or a big one, is how do you develop that equanimity? And you do it bit by bit, piecemeal, right? By practicing the little things, right? It's like, you know, if you're going into weightlifting, you're not going to come in and deadlift 200 kilos, right? It's just that little bit by bit. And every time you do something, what it does is it builds your challenge and control muscles, right? They are built over time as you get through it. But this is where linking into values and meaning and purpose becomes really, really important, right? And I get people to create a version of themselves that's their best self. I call it their sage, and they write down all the character strengths that they know that they have when they're at their best. And my sage is called Jev. JV, he's named after J for Jim Stockdale, who spent 7.5 years in the Hanoi Hilton prison camp, 4 years in solitary confinement, and his story is amazing. E is Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, and V is Viktor Frankl. And so whenever I'm struggling or I need to get myself up, or I actually used it when I was reducing my alcohol, what would Jeff do right now? Like, what would my best self do? In psychology, we call that self-distancing. So you create an emotional distance between yourself and the situation, so you then can behave more cognitively, cerebrally, not driven by emotions, right? And it's a really, really effective strategy.
I love it. Darren talked about this, but from the flip side, when you're behaving, like naming all the characteristics you don't want.
I call it the gremlin.
The gremlin, yeah. And so he was saying, because Alice was asking specific questions about when certain things pop in, and he talked about naming it. I think you called it like...
It was Janine.
Betty, or Janine.
It was Janine. Yeah. And he's like, not now, Janine.
Yeah.
You're not useful right now.
Yeah, that's right. And I love that. This is not helping me right now.
Yeah.
Don't get in a freaking argument with your gremlin about whether you're shit, because it will give you 100 ways why you're shit.
Totally.
It's like an argument with a moron.
You're not helping me right now, right?
And he would be like paying homage to Janine. So he'd be like, I appreciate that you're trying to keep me safe.
That's cool. I
Not
love it.
right now.
Yeah. And this is the thing people need to understand, is that often that gremlin, that negative voice in your head, it is trying to keep you safe. And often there are behaviors, particularly if you've had adverse childhood experiences, which I never had.
Yes.
But that, so if we take a step back, I always say to people that your brain is running a personalized hallucination of reality, right?
That's
all
scary
of our
shit.
brains.
Yeah.
It is, because your brain is basically shaped by your environment and your experiences, and the brain is a lens through which how you view the world, right? And so everybody has this personalized view of the world, right? That
perception is reality.
The perception is reality, and it's that for me. But it's understanding that first and foremost, right? And if someone has had adverse childhood experiences, they're going to have strong emotional reactions to things, right? That maybe 30 years ago, that reaction was serving them well and keeping them safe, but it's now no longer serving them well. So that's the thing to look back, particularly if you've had a troubled past, is what behaviors or reactions to situations that I have that served me well as a kid, that protected me, but that now are not serving me well and are stopping me from leading my best life. So all of this stuff starts with self-awareness, right? We need to be aware and be the watcher, right? I remember I was in Cambodia backpacking decades ago, and I wanted to go and visit this temple. It was in the arsehole of nowhere. And I got to the top of it. This guy took me out on a motorbike, and I got to the top of it, and there was this female monk who was there meditating, and I talked to her through this guy who was translating. And I'd said to her, because she was meditating there, and I said, look, I've been trying to meditate, and I've been trying to do no mind meditation where you empty your thoughts. And I said, I'm completely useless. And she laughed like it was the funniest joke she'd ever heard at me trying to empty my mind. And then she just said to the guy, tell him not to worry about that. Just be the watcher.
Just watch what's coming in and out.
Just watch, observe your mind. And it took me a
Power
while.
of Now, that book, have you read that?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Is that Eckhart Tolle?
Yeah.
So being the observer of your mind, this is core to Zen Buddhism, right? Observing what's coming up, right? When your gremlin pops up and go, to your point from earlier on, curiosity. That's another one of my values. Fuck, that's an interesting response.
Oh, look at you come up.
Where does that come
Yeah, why are you here?
Oh, gremlin, there you are.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Right? What's floating your boat? What's pushed your buttons here?
And it seems so, like, I love that. We had a while ago now, but Liam, a psychotherapist, was big on the curiosity, because it seems to me like that is where the self-compassion is. So it's not this kind of like,
Blame.
I'm going to be fucking hard and like nothing, like fuck that, nothing can get in, but it's there is some self-compassion there. And that's where the kind of improvement and movement comes from, a place of self-compassion where it's just sort of like you're not immediately going like that this blame game on why I'm experiencing this.
Yeah, that 100%. And then that compassion should extend out. So it's like, if we're having an argument, rather than me just going, fuck, he's a dickhead. It's like, why does he behave like that? Like, what's under the hood? Like, be curious. What sort of a life?
Also, what rubs me so wrong that I'm choosing this battle?
That's
this hill
right.
to
Well,
die
I'm
on.
choosing to react. Or somebody cuts you off in traffic, you can go, what a fucking wanker.
Yeah.
Or you can go, I wonder if they're having a bad day.
Yeah.
I wonder are they trying to get to the hospital, right?
Ted Lasso.
It's so I think curiosity. I talk about three things in the book that I think work together beautifully: curiosity, gratitude, and awe. Right?
Oh, I like awe. That's cool.
Yeah. And I've done a gratitude ritual for 30 years since I met a guy in India who had elephantitis and leprosy. Right?
Is that where they get massive growths on the feet?
Yeah. Foot, so it's a virus that makes your foot swell up. It looks like the size of the elephant. And he had leprosy. His nose and ear were eaten away. And it was horrible. But he gave me the greatest gift, the gift of gratitude. And every day for 30 years, I've done a gratitude ritual. And I also then finished, after I did combat survival and resistance to interrogation training, which was pretty hardcore for 10 days. Every night since then, I've probably forgotten a few times, but vast majority of nights when I go to bed, even if I just come home from traveling and I'm knackered and I lie down in bed and the first thought I have is, how fucking awesome is a mattress and a pillow and a doona? Because I force myself to remember combat survival, fucking lying there shivering my ass off, so tired, but not being able to get to sleep. And that's why I think we need to do hard things and not let them go, reflect on them and go, that's when life is really tough, right? This is better. But then bringing in then the awe. So I then just started every now and then, I'll turn the tap on and a little part of my brain goes, how fucking cool is that? Running water.
That's sick. Yeah.
Like, have you ever thought about all the shit that needs that?
What the hell?
Yeah. I'll turn a light on and go, fuck.
Yeah.
How does that work, right?
I love
How
that.
cool is that? And then you go out into nature and it's like, you could spend years out there going, how cool is that shit?
Yeah.
But then wrapping it up with gratitude and curiosity.
Yes.
And the one thing that I'm big on talking about now in my workshops, right? So I run these together. If you're over the age of 27, you've outlived the average human being in 1600s England, right?
Wow.
If you have a roof over your head, running water, electricity, heat, cooling, food security, and safety, you've got it better than probably 99% of Homo sapiens that have ever walked on this planet, right? And then scientists now reckon it's an estimate that our chances of ever having been born are about 1 in 400 trillion.
Yeah,
right?
That's crazy.
And it's like, why wouldn't you start the day like that? So often my gremlin, the first thing that eats first to speak in the morning, and it says, press snooze.
Yeah.
And my seed says, 1 in 400 trillion, motherfucker. Let's get up and do stuff. And that's why I have Memento Mori tattooed on my arm from the Stoic philosophers. Remember death. Remember that you are mortal, that you could die at any moment. And it's not about being morose. It's just to wake up every day with extreme gratitude just to be alive.
And something I think that's very embedded in our society is we will, without thinking, verbalize a negative. So like, fuck, it's cold in here. Like, I'm hungry. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
like,
but
the
opposite.
Can you shut that door? It's like windy. Whereas like, if you actually noticed how many times those just come out that you don't realize, and just for a day try and do like, how sick is that color? Like, verbalize that.
Absolutely.
It's like that then becomes a practice where you can actually start to.
I love that. And it starts with self-awareness. But and you know what? We should make a game out of this. Every time you catch yourself on doing something negative, you got to do 10 burpees. You'll still cut that shit right out.
Yeah, exactly. So if we have, this realization, which most of us do, that we could improve in the hardiness area.
Yeah.
What is the lowest hanging fruit, or like the most simple things that, someone listening to this could go and do right now and build, habits that they can build in that will help them improve, A, and then B, how do we know when we're moving the needle in this area?
Yeah. So A, let's pick something, one from control, one from challenge, one from commitment, one from connection, right? And I'm making this up as I go. But control orientation, take an issue that you're struggling with and do the zones of control exercise. Write down everything on the left-hand side is what's in your control or your power. Everything on the right-hand side is the stuff that's not in your control, and do an energy audit, see where you're going, and then deliberately then sit down and focus on the stuff that you can control and try to change your attitude, use the reappraisal, all that stuff we talked about, right? Then from a challenge orientation, it's about taking something that is a little bit stressful for you and seeing if you can reframe it as a challenge, as a worthy opponent to lean into that will make you better, right? And, a very simple thing that people can start with if they don't do this is just stop this right now, go and have a shower. And at the end of it, you're going to turn it all the way to cold for 30 seconds. But you're going to view it as a challenge just to get through it, right? So it's picking something either that's there or something that you think that's a little bit out of my capability, not hugely, just a little bit out, and go, right, I'm going to view this as a challenge and bring all your resources to that. From a commitment perspective, if you haven't already done this, it's about writing down your values, right? And I like behaviorally based values, right? Things that can translate into behavior, because a lot of people are just walking about through life aimlessly.
Can you give an example of what that would sound like?
Yeah. So
a behavioral based one.
So a behavioral based value might be persistence, right? So I'm going to persist on and go through it. Equanimity, where I'm going to try and be calm in the middle of a shitstorm. I'm going to try to control my arousal, those sorts of things. Gratitude is a behavioral based value because I can actually sit now and list all the things that I am grateful for in my life, right? Ones that can connect to a behavior that you can actually,
because I think a lot of people hear values and they go, family.
Yeah.
And it sort of just sits there like, no shit. If you're a parent,
it's a bit too generic, right?
Yes,
so
I agree.
for me, it's ones that can be linked to a behavior. So you could use the word character strengths.
Okay,
right?
cool.
If you want to. Things that will help you in a certain situation.
Yep.
And then if people want to really go big on this, write a tombstone statement, right? What would you like to be written on your tombstone that would sum up your contribution to society, right? And I'll give you one of my favorite quotes ever. Is from Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, and it's paraphrasing what he said, but basically it's every individual bears the responsibility to be of value to humanity, if possible to benefit a large number, if not to benefit a smaller group, and if that too seems unattainable, then to benefit their immediate community. But above all else, they must prioritize self-growth and personal well-being. And I love that because it encapsulates everything with hardiness, commitment, a sense of meaning and purpose, being fully engaged in life, and being committed to your own well-being. So if yours was, being a great trainer and helping people open doors to their fitness, right? It's like that is how do I practice that every single day and really deliberately, intentionally focus on that? But in order to be a great trainer, you need to be in good shape, right? If yours is to be the best mum you can be, well, you have to look after yourself. It's the oxygen mask first. That's why I love that, because, and it doesn't need to be more complicated. When I talk about purpose to people are like, some people, I kind of know. Some people are like, fuck, I'm struggled with this shit and I'm waiting for the purpose fairy.
Yeah.
It's right there in Seneca's quote. It's how can you be a positive influence in your little corner of the universe, right? That's
and I like that it also reflects on, while still fostering, that sense in yourself. So it's not just like, fuck you and go and help everyone else at your expense, right?
No, absolutely. That's key. And then the last one is connection orientation. Just think of a good friend that you haven't connected with for a while. Pick up the phone or arrange to have a coffee. Ideally, a face-to-face conversation. If you can't do face-to-face, video call. Zoom is good because you get more than just text. Texting's just bullshit communication, right? Or think of, is there somebody in my little corner of the universe that could use an arm around the shoulder, what I call a tap code conversation, right? That came out of the Hanoi Hilton. But it's just that being socially connected and integrated and doing social good and feel like you're contributing to society. That's the stuff that drives human flourishing, right? Not owning a fucking mega house and a fancy car and all that shit, right?
Yeah.
It's the stuff, it's about social connection, social growth, social integration, but also having some positive emotions as well in your life, but also feeling like you're striving and you're continually becoming better. That whole idea of mastery, of how do I pick something and just try to get better and better at it. And it's never a destination, right? It's got to be a journey.
Yeah, it's amazing. Last one from me. What are some green flags when you're speaking to someone that you're like, yep, you've done some work in this space?
Oh, interesting. When they talk about adversity positively, I know they've done the work, or when they're relishing a challenge, right? I had a conversation. I got interviewed the other day by, fucking hell, his name's just gone. SAS, Are You Tough Enough guy, Ant.
Oh yeah, the British guy.
Yeah. And so we were talking about stuff. He was interviewing me on my podcast. And we both have the same view of life, just different terminology. For Ant, life is a game. Always has been a game. And for me, I've learned from the Stoics about life is a contest, right? And to understand that every day you need to be in the game of life, right? It's like, you don't just rock up and like, oh, kind of maybe will I participate or not? It's like fucking fully on in the game of life. Wake up and go, you know what? Bad shit might happen today. I'm going to be prepared for it. Or whatever happens, I'm going to be fully in it. I'm going to be fully engaged. If it's cool, I'm going to dive into it. If it's not, fuck, this is a challenge and I'm going to orientate and I'm going to be fully into it. I think having that mindset of life is awesome, but there's also going to be bumps on the road and they're not to be a victim about. They are tests and you need to get up for that and lean into it. And when you get over that bump, go, fucking woe me, right? Even if it is you got your ass out of bed, you've got to actually reflect and go, yes, I've actually won that part of the game. Right? Because that's the stuff that builds you over and builds in that competitive attitude. And coming back to that conversation with the physiologist, I think what's in them is the bit of dog for life, right?
I love that.
And it's like, how do you have a bit of dog in your life every day, right? Be fully engaged in the shit as well as the awesome stuff. That, for me, is what it's all about.
Yeah, I always think like the most interesting people that I know, I'm like, why are they so interesting? It's because they're interested.
Yeah.
And they're
curious,
like,
right?
they go and seek out that stuff. And so, like, I've spoken to people that are like, I'm just not interesting. It's because you're not interested.
They're just, they're just, they're just, it's like, fucking hell, dude, 1 in 400 trillion, and you're fucking wasting it by being grey. It's just, like, it's ridiculous.
And it almost links, back into that. And it's not to say that people shouldn't take antidepressants if they feel they need them, whatever, but it's just, that's ultimately how I ended up feeling, didn't know the stats, but it's like I'm here and I'm choosing to exist in this grey matter of human emotion when that's literally the spice of life is all of these different experiences in the emotional realm as well as the physical.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Incredible. This has been amazing. This has been such an insightful chat. Anything from you?
No, nothing. Just my last little bit, I was telling Alice this before, but you had a bit of involvement with Personal Training Academy.
Yes.
That was the people I did my course through. So I'd watched a ton of your lectures. Yeah. What was it, 12, 13 years ago?
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Nathan, I can't remember.
Nathan Quinn.
Nathan Quinn was my PT.
Was your instructor.
My instructor, yeah.
Cool. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome. We kept in contact for a lot of years afterwards. And then just over the last probably 4 or 5 years, haven't heard much from him since.
And that's cool that you're still in the industry 12, 13 years later.
Well,
because
there's two things I remember from when I first went in. One was like, he was like, I think there was like 20 of us for Cert 3 for the first, whatever it was, the week we go in there. And I think his opening statement was like, most of you are going to like be lucky to last 9 months.
Yeah.
And it's stuck with me ever since. But yeah, it's almost 13 years maybe now.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I do have one more question, actually. Can you think of anything where it was a belief held of yours in this space or in any spaces that you've changed your mind on? And you look back at previous Paul and you were like, I didn't know shit.
Breathwork. If you'd have asked me about breathwork 10 years ago, I'd have said it's fluffy bullshit touted by the Crystal Waving Brigade. Now, I'm all in. I think it's a really important life skill and we should be teaching all of our children how to use their breath to control their physiology.
There you go. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming out. I don't even think it's that new on like mouth breathing in children and things like that too.
Yeah,
which is
absolutely.
If you peel off a layer, there's like layers of that, isn't it? And it's not woo-woo.
Look, there's so far you can go down. Nasal breathing, how it changes your physiology compared to mouth breathing, even affects your brain differently. Right? There's just learning to breathe right, I think is hugely important.
Yeah.
And I mouth tape at night. You can probably tell I boxed. I had a deviated septum. I had my nose broken when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then I got fractured again and I couldn't breathe through my nose. So it was a chronic mouth breather. And then when I got my nose fixed, and he actually said to me, do you want me to shape your nose? I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah.
But when I got my nose fixed, I was like, oh my God,
I've been missing out so long.
This is so different.
Yeah.
But I then started taping up my mouth at night to train myself to breathe through my nose.
To breathe through your nose,
because I just had decades of breathing through my mouth.
Yes.
And it was a big change. Change.
Yeah, there's tons of work in that space where it's not woo-woo, is it? It's very important.
This is not woo-woo. And the effect of slow control breathing on your parasympathetic nervous system. You know, when you do slow control breathing, particularly with a longer breath out, you activate the vagus nerve and the phrenic nerve from the bottom up. And together they reduce your heart rate, reduce your blood pressure, increase your heart rate variability, which is a good thing, and take your brain out of a stress state. So working with little kids, showing the kids that they can use their breath to de-escalate their arousal levels.
The Confident Man group, we've done a bit of breath work with them and just a Q&A. How do you feel right now? Let's try and think of something relatively stressful, a test coming up, a bully in the playground. Let's do some breath work.
Yeah.
How do you feel now? And they're like, I can't remember what I was thinking about before.
It can't not work, really.
Yes.
It reminds me of, we talked to Dr. Tim. He was saying that and gut health stuff is now like really emerging.
Is that Tim Crow?
Yes.
Yeah. I've had Tim on post.
Yes.
He's great.
He's awesome.
Yeah,
he was saying like his thing
gut
is
health is
gut health, and how linked
But
that
not
is to mood.
not the current Instagram gut health they talk about, like the simplicity of like just good vegetables, cruciferous vegetables and things like that. Whereas if you go on Instagram, the gut health stuff people talk about are like, it's just too over the top. We don't know enough about that stuff. But what I liked about it, he was, what did he talk about? He's like trying to make the basics sexy.
Absolutely. And this is the thing that I say to people, we have coexisted as a species for hundreds of thousands of years, eating a diverse amount of plants and meat and fish. And we now know about the gut microbiome that you don't actually feed yourself directly. You feed yourself through the microbes in your gut. And if you're eating a diet high in processed carbohydrates and sugar and ultra-processed foods with emulsifiers and flavors and all of those things, you are fucking up your ecosystem.
It's not that complicated. I can't remember who it was. You might know someone that just said, eat like a fucking adult. Like that's literally it. Like if you wouldn't give your kids ice cream for dinner, that's probably what you shouldn't do too. Like it's not that hard.
No, exactly.
It's funny when you look at the plate that you give to your children. Because if I give, let's say I'm like, we have toast cheese sandwiches, the plate always still comes with like berries, bananas. Like it'll always come with maybe cut up carrots, vegetables. But if I was to sit down and eat myself, I'd just have the toast cheese sandwich.
Yeah, there you go.
So I always tell to Tracy all the time, like, at least make yourself up a fourth plate, like you got a fourth child, and you eat the plate that they're eating.
There you go.
Because I find myself you simplify it yourself. You're like, I don't need it because you don't notice it.
Yeah.
But then you're also like, why am I so tired all the time?
Yeah, literally. Yeah, incredible. Thank you so much. This
Pleasure.
has been super insightful. Where can listeners reach you? Obviously, your podcast.
Yeah, which is now called the Hardiness Podcast.
The Hardiness Podcast.
And the book is The Hardiness Effect.
Yep.
So it's now, depending on when this goes live, it'll be either on sale or just on finishing off the pre-sale.
Should people read your first book first?
They don't have to, actually, because they're both different.
Okay.
They're both different. I talk about exercise in both of them, but from a very, very different perspective.
Okay.
So it's not one or the other. But so the podcast, the books, and the website, paultaylor.biz.
Brilliant. This was amazing. I'm going to go and binge all your podcast episodes.
Yeah, cool.
And
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Cheers.
Absolute legend. Thank you so much.
Thank